while not a Unitarian Universalist, is certainly a fellow traveler on this journey that we are on to be more spiritual, more connected, more aware. She says, we are all on a journey together to the center of the universe. Look deep into yourself, into another. It is to a center which is everywhere. That is the holy journey. First, you need to look. Notice and honor the radiance of everything about you. Play in this universe. Tend all these shining things around you. The smallest plant, the creatures, the objects in your care. Be gentle and nurture. Listen. As we experience and accept all that we really are, we grow in care. We begin to embrace others as ourselves and learn to live as one among many. Alina and Brian McGinty will light our chalice this morning, and I invite you to say the words of our covenant, which you will find printed in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. Executed the sacrament, and service is prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to respect the nurturing power within all of us. Let us do the covenant.
The center of the universe.
You mean Fuuse?
Fuuse and all the things that Fuuse is doing, both here in America and around the world. Yes, thank you.
I can see a shiny future for Fuuse through these glasses. I see financial success and abundance. I see seats for everyone.
Good morning. My name, as many of you know, is Gecko. I serve on the Fuuse Pledge Committee. One of my courses beside me.
The future has a better sound system.
Is that better? Your turn, Mary Alice.
Oh, yes. Cohort, that's me, Mary Alice LaPointe, and I'm glad to be here. Our third Pledge Committee teammate, Deb Merrick, is out of town, or at least getting about 3 different flights to come into Manchester Airport as we speak. She sends her greetings and is very much involved, and she will be back soon. She may actually be here by the end of service.
My turn. Today, we are formally kicking off the annual Fuuse Pledge Drive. To go with this year's initiative, we have a new theme, which we hope you'll like. Just 4 words, but full of meaning. The 4 words, leaning into the future. The wordsmiths among you will be able to guess how many yous we use in future. Back to the pledge, though. This year's donations will serve as an opportunity for us all to demonstrate a strong commitment to our vibrant community. And a good number of you will get a chance to talk things over at one of the pledge dinners coming up that you are welcome to sign up for at any time. There are many needs to be met, as we know, short, medium, long term. Our financial support can make all that happen as we, yes, lean into our future here at Fuuse.
And as you might have guessed, this year we'll be doing things just a little bit differently. For a start, we now have the ability to receive pledge commitments digitally. First things first, We're also going to be working toward a single pledge Sunday, which will be March 6th. This is the day when we're devoted to showing our Fuuse commitment by filling the basket in a traditional way with our annual pledge commitment forms. And for those of you who are not procrastinators and digitally astute, the pledge commitment forms will be completed and delivered to Fuuse in advance online. You can do that from now right through March 6th, but March 6th will be our pledge day that will all culminate in all of our pledge cards coming in that day. Doing this provides a special advantage. As soon as your digital pledge has been received, here's the good news. All your email reminders from us will stop. Most of them anyway. We'll just keep you up to date and tell you what's going on, but if you pledge online before March 6th, you won't need to hear from us anymore. So whether you're traditional or digital, either way is okay. Most importantly, start early making on the pledge drive by signing up for one of the pledge dinners. Everyone will get an email with a digital sign up on Tuesday. That's going out. So look for the email on Tuesday, click into it, and choose one of the pledge dinners if you can. They do fill up fast, so I would recommend that those of you who really want to go do so quickly. And remember that the pledge that we are all pledging for is our fiscal year that begins July 1st of this year. And that, one more thing, and that allows us to give all of our pledge commitments to the Board of Trustees early so that they can do all of our planning before our annual meeting in May.
Thank you very much.
Our 7 principles. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part.
Those 7 principles are inside of the cover of our order of service now. And they are there not to be a creed, but to let us continually look at what is in fact a covenant among Unitarian Universalists. These were created and voted on and get revisited every 25 years at least. And so we keep them before us, so that we can keep reaching for them again. I am inviting us as a congregation to start to deepen our practice of joys and sorrows. From time to time, announcements creep in to our joys and sorrows time. And there are lots of reasons for that, but I am asking that we reserve this joy and sorrow time for joys and sorrows. Now, I know that you feel joyful and sorrowful about a wide range of things. So what I really mean is the profound transformations of our lives. Births and deaths and those moments of spiritual insight that shift who you are and how you are in the world. The Program Council is thinking about ways to allow some kinds of announcements to be made on Sunday so that those things that need to get said can get said in some way. The point isn't to keep you from communicating with each other. The point is to, in this hour, when we try to step outside of the busyness of life, to preserve these moments, to really settle into the profoundness of our lives. It's easy to get lost in the trivial and the little bits and the busyness. So let us have this time be for those life transformation moments. So come and stand with me by the piano to tell us about your life, what is turning and changing in your being. And I will also let you know that on the weeks that we are having a Give It Away Sunday, next week for instance, we will have written joys and sorrows on those days always, and you'll be invited to bring those cards forward to our Tree of Life bowl. And in fact, if any week you have something that you would like to have spoken aloud in this space, but you can't speak it, but you want it said, write it on one of our cards and put it in this Tree of Life bowl, and I will read it aloud. The cards will be mostly along the aisle here in the hymnal racks, and if you have another piece of paper, you can write on that and put it in this bowl to be read. Please come forward and stand with me if you have one of the joys or sorrows or great changes unfolding in your life that you would like to have witnessed by this community.
I'm going to be a grandmother again.
Lori, and this is something that I know many of you have gone through and maybe are also going through, but as a mom, joy and sorrow. It was great having my older two sons home, one who moved to another part of the country a few years ago, and then other son who's moving to Los Angeles tomorrow. So it's like a mixed bag of, transforming moment of, and it's mixed with joy because I'm happy for them because they're going off into the world and doing their thing, but selfishly for me, I'm sad because it does feel like a loss that they're going to be far away, so yeah.
I invite you into a time of meditation for your own prayer practice. And we may hear the hum and babble of life during this meditation time. We are going to be able to do so. I invite you into this time with the words of Marianne Williamson, which you may know well. You may also think that these were Nelson Mandela's words, but he borrowed them from her, and they are her words. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us most. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, and not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking or being quiet so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are born to make manifest the glory within us. It is not just some of us. It's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence liberates others. The Unitarian Universalist church there. It's a big stone, I would call it Gothic, but the architects in the room might correct me about the exact style that it's in. Big stained glass windows, a very formal, grand place. And friends of mine had 2 babies while I was there, and one of the babies really liked to attend the service. But they found as she got older that during the time when people were singing and talking, the baby was quiet, but as soon as the room got quiet, the baby had a lot to say. And the parents finally decided that the baby had actually learned the art of conversation already and understood that when someone else is talking, you're listening, and when they stop talking, then it's your turn to talk. Perhaps that was in fact what's happening. Children are picking up on things and enacting things about our collective lives that we're not always aware of. So it's a joy to be in conversation. We have this morning spoken aloud collectively in one case and heard spoken aloud in another case 2 pretty essential pieces of Unitarian Universalist life. We have spoken our 2 covenants this morning. The first is the covenant that we regularly call that. It's printed in the order of service that we say together. And then our principles, and we usually refer to them as our 7 principles or our principles. But they really are a covenant, something that Unitarian Universalists have collectively agreed to, and they are agreements about how we will act in the world. They are not promises about God, but they are promises that are made to and with the life that is larger than our individual lives. These are sets of promises with the fullness and wholeness of life. They are, in some real way, a conversation with that which is more than us. And that which is more than us is defined at least 100 different ways. That's how many people are in the room. Both the covenant that we say, starting with love is the doctrine of this church, and our 7 principles, are a way to make the life which is larger than us part of our daily living. So when someone asks you, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? The answer is not what almost all of us always say, you can believe whatever you want. Even though that is, in fact, a sort of correct answer to the question that people appear to be asking. because you can believe whatever you want. But when people are asking that, they're usually asking it from a Christian perspective, even if they are not Christian. We're embedded in Christianity in this country, and so the way you measure a religion is by what you believe. So what they're really asking is, what do Unitarian Universalists think about God? And so then the answer is, well, whatever you want. But they're not actually asking you about that. What they're really wondering, I think, is what is at the heart of your religious life? How do you know that you're a religious person? What is it about your religion that is useful and engaging? And so I think that the answer to that question is, we believe that how a person lives, how they act in the world, the choices that they make, we believe that that is how religion is expressed. So to say that what you do, what you actually do day to day, hour to hour, is your religious life, means that we are a people of covenant. We are a people always in conversation. We are defined by what we do. That is our religion. Creeds are not about what you do, but about an idea or an understanding to which you consent. And many of you and many Unitarian Universalists started out religious lives inside of a creed, and found that that creed, that statement about the nature of God and maybe about the nature of humans, it wasn't big enough for life. You probably know, either by heart from childhood or from having heard it in the air in this world, you likely know a Christian creed or two about a Father and a Son and a Holy Spirit. And you may recognize the Muslim creed. You may not think about Islam as having a creed, but they very much do. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. That is the creedal part of Islam. Islam, like all religions, also has some very important tenets about how one is to behave in the world. The Jewish tradition also organizes their religion around the claim that God is one, but it isn't creedal in the same way in Judaism. Their religious practice is more about a conversation with God. And so it is not uncommon to find a person who is fairly Jewish, but says they don't believe in God, that they've stepped outside of that particular piece of religious life. Which is to say that belief in a certain kind of God isn't at the heart of their religious life, just as we say it isn't for ours. That the relationship, the agreement about how to act in the world is more essential. And that the telling a story of transcendence is also more essential. Stepped away from that singular focus on creed that we get from our Judeo-Christian heritage and from our cousins in Islam. We are a religion that is open to the world around us, a religion that is interested in forming and reforming, a religion that is decentralized and responsive, which means it is hard to get us together. How do we collect ourselves? How do we live in relationship so that we can, in fact, live into these covenants? It is easy to think of ourselves, and many jokes, in fact, are made about Unitarian Universalists as being cats. Individuals who will wander into the warm part of the house at the same time and mill around together for a while, and then maybe retreat to our quiet corners and our bird feeder viewing windows. And we know and have experienced that the promise of this kind of religious life is that the sum is greater than the whole of the parts, that something happens when we act as if it matters that we are together, that life is stronger in us when we live in this covenant together. So I wanted you to get to hear the thinking of another participant in this covenant, another thinker and writer, about what it means to live into this collective promise. David Weber will share his thinking with us this morning.
Good morning. I'm hoping in these few minutes to connect a few dots related to Fuse's sense of itself as a congregation, as opposed to a gathering only of kindred individual spirits. I'm not dreaming of herding cats, an animal which we Uyghurs do sometimes resemble. But I am thinking that we live in a world where kindred individual spirits may want to consider joint action beyond Fuuse, not just episodically or serendipitously, but as part of Fuse's identity. I think this idea that collective action is becoming part of who we are has emerged partly from the 7 principles, which commit us not just to a free and responsible search for meaning, but to a democratic process, to compassion, to justice, to equity, to peace, to environmental responsibility. And the idea of collective action has emerged also from our living willy-nilly in a world where our principles often require public defense, and from our actual history, in fact, from our actual recent history. I will cite a few examples, none of them involving a party line or a creed or an expectation of unanimity, but all of them involving public actions embodying concerns that were clarified here, deepened here, shared here. Often these concerns have also been on the minds and hearts of other intentional communities, especially in Exeter, those of the Congregational Church and Christ Church Episcopal, who are also our partners along with the Academy in the speaker series, We the People. Not too many years ago, when even civil unions for same-sex couples had only a tenuous foothold in New Hampshire law, churches, including Fuuse, collected signatures of our own willing members that spoke to the legislature. Do not think, we said in effect, that there is a religious consensus in opposition to legal recognition of committed same-sex relationships. That opposition is fervent and loud, but so is our support fervent, and it will be increasingly public. We speak to you as members of a substantial religious community. Fuuse became, by formal democratic vote, a welcoming congregation. The Congregational Church adopted that denomination's terminology and is open and affirming. Christ Church supported emphatically, though not unanimously, the election of Gene Robinson, a gay man in a committed relationship, as bishop of their diocese. I cannot prove, but I do believe that the stacks of signatures from their constituent churches changed the legislature's understanding of the issue and helped broaden the law, which thus took on a closer affinity with our principles. More recently, groups of Fuuse members have stood together in the public square for action to reduce gun violence. Jane Oldfield Spearman spoke to Rachel Maddow's audience in what I would call a UU idiom. Fuuse members, led by Stephanie Marshall, went to New York to stand with hundreds of thousands of other citizens in a dramatic and inspiring call for action to stem the global assault on the natural world. Sylvia Foster and others in the Green Sanctuary Group keep us oriented toward other compelling environmental actions. In the annual Crop Walk, Fuuse members have followed Rich and Sally Coleman, and in so doing we have become a mainstay of another humanitarian action whose formal auspices are outside our own denomination. Most of us, through Give It Away Sundays, and some through volunteer service to Seacoast Family Promise, have tried, as you use, to address needs we could have ignored. Fuuse has hosted, thanks to Herb Moyer, a panel on socially conscious investing. Kendra brought Occupy New Hampshire here. We cannot expect always to prevail. What we can expect, what we can ask of ourselves, is an open question for everyone here. No one has to do everything. No one has to do any particular thing. We are, in that way, you cats. But in this world there are endless occasions for collective as well as individual conscientious action. Readers of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me may want to test the solidity of non-discrimination policies among local realtors. Fuuse members who live in Exeter may want to act on the retirement of Chief Kane to try to ensure comprehensive training and commitment in our police department to the ethos of community policing. New Hampshire residents may want to learn more about the structural unfairness and inadequacy of our state tax policies and act to mitigate their consequences. Climate change will not cease to pressure us anytime soon, to say the least. A full integration of all 7 fundamental UU principles, the communal ones as well as the cat ones, might well lead us to some new emphases. I'm hoping, first of all, for conversations in which various Fuuse groups and I'm hoping, first of all, for conversations in various Fuuse groups and contexts in which we can sort all this out together. Thanks for listening, cats or not.
So rather than being able to say, oh, well, Unitarian Universalists can believe anything because there isn't a creed we agree to, there is actually a fairly demanding covenant here. To be invited to live into a set of promises about how we will be with each other, just the 100 or 200 of us here, and then how we will be with all of life around us. It takes a lot of inner work and a lot of work with each other and a lot of care to actually live into these covenants, one of which we say weekly and one of which we have before us all the time in print now. Thinking about how to balance action in the world with the inner work that is required to actually hold on to these covenants. I thought about the story that I've told a couple of times now, the story of the grumpy gecko. You may remember it, or it may sound familiar to you as I tell you this slightly shortened version of it. This is set in a rainforest, and there is a tiger dozing at the edge of the forest, and a gecko comes stomping up to the tiger and complains that the fireflies are keeping him awake, which puzzles the tiger. The tiger thinks, I don't know, you've got it pretty good, Mr. Gecko. But the gecko is adamant that the fireflies should be behaving better. So the tiger goes and talks to the fireflies, who say, well, we're just responding to what the woodpecker is doing. The woodpecker keeps saying. So we're just repeating that message. We're not sure what it is, but it seems urgent. So the tiger goes and talks to the woodpecker, and the woodpecker says, well, I'm just letting people know what the beetle is doing on the path. It keeps rolling this stuff around. So the tiger goes and talks to the beetle, and the beetle says, well, I'm really just cleaning up after that buffalo. The buffalo keeps leaving things here, and it's not safe. I'm cleaning up. So the tiger goes and talks to the buffalo and says, look, the gecko, can you stop? And the buffalo says, I am doing my part because the rain keeps washing big holes into the path, and I'm just trying to fill them in. The tiger is puzzled by that, so decides, all right, I'll go and talk to the rain. Well, it's hard to talk to the rain. He follows the stream up through the forest, up to the top of the mountain, and can look out over the rain clouds, and can see the rain falling on the forest, and can see the rivers flowing through the forest and out to the sea, and can see everything that's growing because of the rain. And in that moment has that awareness of how all life is connected, that everything, the difficulties and the beauty are all interwoven, and that everything is connected. Even the things that are fighting with each other, even the things that don't have any idea that they're connected, they're all part of this water cycle, they're all part of this life. So the tiger stands there for a moment in that clarity of what we would say is spiritual insight, just clear for a moment. But of course you don't get to live in that all the time. You have to go back down into the forest. You have to go and talk to the gecko. So he does. He goes back to the gecko and says, all right, it's like this. The rain, and then the buffalo, and then the beetles, and then the woodpecker, and then the fireflies, and it's all connected, and I think, Mr. Gecko, you should just close your eyes and see if you can let all of this happen and have your place in it. And then what I imagine, this is not part of the original story, is that there is, of course, another disruption in the rainforest. Maybe the sloths start slinging fruit at the frogs, or some other cruelty comes up. Those things that beings do to each other when we forget that our lives depend on each other, when we forget that it is all connected. And the tiger would have to begin that set of conversations again, would have to remember that love is the story of community, that the interdependent web is always holding us. The tiger would have to keep pulling on that covenant and pulling other people back into it. And the tiger would forget, of course, and get grumpy himself. But hopefully the tiger would be able to go back up through the rainforest to that place where you can see the wholeness. And I hope that is what we can do for each other, hold that wholeness, so that when you go out into the world together, or go home to your families, you can engage this covenant of ours. You can hold on to this love, this quest for truth and meaning, our idea that democracy should be everywhere, this web, that you can live it out in all kinds of mundane and profound ways. And that together we can hold that view that as we work for justice, we are relying on the rain. part of how we are a congregation is that we continually agree to be in this work together. That whatever the world is presenting to us, we will keep at it together, even if we are disagreeing with each other in a particular moment. We agree to stay at it together. And part of doing that is supporting this congregation in the most material ways, giving time, bringing in food for coffee hour, putting money in the basket so that we can keep doing what we're doing here. And then there are all of the intangible ways that we support and nurture this place. We honor those by making time to light candles up front for unspoken transformations in your lives, for hopes, for memories. The morning offering, all of the unfolding stories and fresh covenants of this congregation will now be received. please remain standing and join in singing our closing hymn, a hymn of covenant, a hymn of go out into your days and live what you are. Please join in the unison benediction. Words are printed in the order of service.